Fellow televiewers, welcome to another episode of the No KUNNY Talk Show. I am your host, Capo Daniel, the Deputy Defense Chief of the Ambazonian Defense Forces, the Anti-Kidnapping Czar, as well as an attaché to the Ambazonian Governing Council. You are all welcome to the ACN television across the globe, across Africa. Welcome once more to this show, and thank you for opening your home to welcome me into your house to speak to you directly, especially the brave people of Ambazonia, the brave people of Tigray, the brave people of Somaliland, the brave people of Biafra land, and all those who are fighting for their right, the right of self-determination across the continent Africa. You are all highly welcome to this very big show. So tonight, my fellow country people, them will go to analyze for now the big speech where Tibor idangiam for an interview with Chris Anu for the ABS television channel. We thank them for that wonderful show, and we will use excerpt from that show today for bring una a frank advice for Ambazonia from Ambassador Tibor Nagy, the former Undersecretary of State for African Affairs from the United States of America. He then give a very frank advice to Ambazonia. Today we will analyze that particular interview with Chris Anu for giving the details them. We then give it be very critical for the Ambazonian people then for no. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't get some more cough during this weekend. So pardon me for my voice, the quality of my voice. Now why that one never see me online quite often. But we're going to go straight into our presentation. I will start with my opening statement. Then I will give a message to Ground Zero from my office, from the forces, also from the Savannah State, in particularly in Bamenda. I will also give a little brief insight into the speech given by Dr. Chua Yaba, the leader of our war of our liberation. And then after that, I will get straight into the frank advice to Ambazonia by Ambassador Tibor Nagy. So let us go straight into our opening statement. As you know very well, this is a program where we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, because the truth is very important to me, and only the truth shall set us free. So ladies and gentlemen, in my opening statement today, in something where it will touch your personal life, not something where it will touch the life of our people and anybody where it is struggle for get freedom, whether not financial freedom, whether not freedom for our country, whether not freedom for your country across Africa. It is one thing where I want on our own countryman for year, and I say, life it be too short for spend all your time trying to be at peace with everybody. Life is too short to try to be at peace with everybody. In this life, there are some people who are meant to help you, and those people are also a tool for the devil and also an obstacle of your life. I mean, some people, not all. The people who are supposed to help you are the stumbling block to your life. You will have to look across history. When Moses Ibuan delivered the Jewish people them from Egypt, the main people, the way they be obstacle, it be being the elites then amongst the Jewish people. Now the same thing for plenty people their life. Whether na your pa, whether na your brother, or na your stepsister or mother, or whether na your friend, most often in life, the people you think should be the ones that will help you are the ones that may be your downfall. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest obstacle to your freedom, to whether your personal life, your career, or us as a people in Africa, or people who are suffering from dictatorship, from slavery, usually the happy slave is usually your biggest obstacle. The slave that the Americans call the house nigger, that slave who have seen the bedroom of the master, the one that they will choose amongst you will be the one that is supposed to help you. The leaders, the people you look up to, some pastors, some politicians that you look up to, maybe in your job, the only black person in your job that you will look up to, maybe amongst your friends, the only person that you think will help you, that will be the person that your oppressor will have interest in to use to persecute you, to stop you. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes there are people in life that you need to love from a distance. Don't frustrate yourself too much trying to make peace with people who have learned the ways of the oppressor. It will never work. Even though they are one of us, you have to love them from a distance. Our nature as peace-loving people is to always try to go extra mile to make peace with everybody. Try to unite with everybody. But the more you try to unite with certain people who don't want to unite with you, the more you give them control over your life. There are people who have learned the way of the oppressors, who will always see you like something less, who sees your endeavors as stubbornness to succumb to the ways of slavery, to succumb to the way that they want you to be. They want you to be free. No matter what you do, it will never be enough. So you cannot try to appease the house nigger because his job is to make you conform, because he is already enjoying from the system. That one that wants to look like the master, dress like the master, and talk like the master. Those Ambazonians, those Africans who have lost their culture and adopted the Western way. You can never please them. You can never. They always want to keep you down. They don't want to see you higher. When you are intelligent, they want to portray you as you are being arrogant. You cannot fulfill your destiny by appeasing those who don't want to be appeased, by trying to unite with those who don't want to unite with you, by trying to be friends with people who don't love you. Sometimes, as people who are fighting for freedom, you have to open your own way. You have to go your own way. You have to do it alone. You have to prove to yourself and even to the house nigger that you can make it on your own. Then, perhaps, they will realize themselves and they will come to you. But remember that for the Hebrew people, during the time of Moses, God himself, who is all loving, who is all peaceful, have to open the earth to swallow those who are the elites, so that those who are the grassroots can walk into freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my opening statement. Welcome to this show. Today, I want to send this message directly to Bamenda. The colonial governor of Bamenda, he done get meeting with some teachers, some headmasters, some proprietors and for some school. And I want to send this message directly for the Progressive Comprehensive High School way there for Bamenda, PCHS. Now the biggest school for Bamenda, a colonial governor, Lele Afrique, the chief terrorist will be in charge of the scorched earth policy of La République du Cameroon. At this time, we were people that suffer from the burning of houses for Bengui Road. He then instruct the principal, the teachers, the proprietors of PCHS. Say, make from Monday, from Tuesday, make all students for PCHS, they start wearing uniform. It be against the law of the land. It be against our liberation movement. Now, treason, if you violate these cardinal rules of this liberation movement. I want to send this message to all the parents and all the teachers of PCHS Mancon. If you allow your students to put on uniform to go to school, you'll be making a mockery of those boys in the bushes who are fighting for their freedom. The Cameroon military that you accept to come and guard Progressive will become a target for the Ambazonian defense forces in Bamenda. You attract attacks on that school, not against the students, not against us, but against the Cameroon military presence in that school. You turn Progressive into a battleground. Do not send your children to school with uniforms. You must resist. If it happens, all teachers, proprietors, and everybody that represent Progressive Comprehensive High School will be arrested. I should make that one clear. We have been flexible to allow community schools. We have encouraged community school across our territory. But if you take it for granted that at a time when 8 million people are fighting for their freedom, when the Cameroon government is using collective punishment, you want to give a slap in the face of everyone to send your children to school with uniforms, to create the sense of normalcy for La République's benefit, you will have yourself to be blamed for the risk you are taking. So to all parents who have their children in Progressive Comprehensive High School, do not take that risk. Do not put us in that uncomfortable position. It will not happen if you do attract Manawa in Progressive. That I assure you, that is predictable. That is predictable. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want for Teguna for the speech where the leader of our war of liberation, Dr. Chua Yaba, again for the end of year, before we go for Tibor Nagy'S speech. Dr. Chua Yaba, as you know very much, give a speech for end of year. For the long time we don't live with La Republic, we don't become used to for leader way, he can give end of year speech where it mean nothing to the life of our people. Leadership will then be disconnected with the reality of our people. Them this year, Dr. Chua Yaba, he don't make an exception. He talks he go give a televised speech, but he don't give some small speech in writing. We will then translate them into audio. I want me gonna listen up for ground zero. They so make our technician play that speech for una.
My fellow Ambazonians, I will not be making a New Year televised address this year. I'm informed that your two presidents will be addressing the nation. We will no longer join in the foolery that has begun our struggle for 5 years. After 4 years of active combat and 60 years of resistance, we have defeated Cameroon as a regime of occupation. Political occupation manifests itself in governing the occupied territory, controlling the occupied territory, and being able to conduct governmental business as the sole instrument of political power. This no longer exists in most parts of Ambazonia. What now exists is a desperate attempt by 9,500 armed Cameroon Turks to re-establish the conditions under which political occupation can be re-established. Our strategy must remain continuously to disrupt through surgical search and destroy operations Cameroon's attempt at re-establishing legitimate political governance, and second, we must be able to eliminate Cameroon's presence and defend the suburbs and establish legitimate Ambazonia political governance. Anything short of these two approaches may lead us into a protracted Eritrean-style 30-year war. For us to succeed in these endeavors, we must take extraordinary steps that requires commitment and not goodwill. Under international law, territoriality gives rise to certain obligations, among which are the provisions and security of power to impose taxes. More than 200 years ago, Italy attempted to impose territorial protectorate over parts of northern Ethiopia in conformity with Article 34 of the General Act of Congress of Berlin of February 1885. The Russian and the French governments objected, since there had been neither effective occupation nor a formal proclamation of protection, nor was the geographic extent of Italian claim clarified. Cameroon does not only lack territorial control and the powers to impose taxes, but it has also become the source of undermining the provision of security. Authority now resides in our forces, who can now show effective territorial control, provide services, and thus must be considered the legitimate instrument of governmental activities, including the imposition of taxes. The liberation tax as a policy will empower our forces and shortens the mopping out operations. All foreign multinational companies are obligated to pay taxes to the legitimate authorities in our land. All small-scale Ambazonian businesses are exempted from this policy. In 2022, the Ambazonia Governing Council will impose on all Ambazonia cultural and social associations in the diaspora whose foundation of existence is the culture of Ambazonia a survival levy of $1,000 each. All individual Ambazonians not belonging to these cultural groups but intending to enter the territory of Ambazonia must show proof of their commitment to the survival of the Ambazonian people. Those who enrich the occupier through visa fees must show commitment to the protection of our people. All death ceremonies, weddings, birthday festivities by any Ambazonian expatriate who do not show commitment to the protection of our people will be banned. Defaulters will be arrested by our forces. We thank every Ambazonian in the diaspora for their goodwill in prayer and activism. 2022 is a year of commitment. If these policies are effectively implemented, we will announce on August 30, 2022, if the Ambazonian struggle is entering the transition phase or not. If we are, we will come together to use our gains on the ground to set up a transitional council in the image of our negotiation team model that would then constitute a transition authority. The transitional authority will coexist with the liberation leadership and only take prominence once our territory is either recognized as a self-governing or independent country. The Ambazonia Governing Council leadership has begun the hard work in ensuring that in 2022 we build bridges between us to eliminate completely the arrogance of entitlement that has killed thousands of our people. Fellow Ambazonians, in 1975, America and Australia declared East Timor too small to be independent and supported Indonesia's invasion. By the end of the occupation, more than 200,000 people had been murdered. The nationalists never gave up and fought to the bitter end. The last 100 days in the life of the Habyarimana government of Rwanda cost the lives of 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus. A real rebel never stopped and ushered Rwanda into a new era. We as a people have prevailed over Cameroon. We must use 2022 to change the destiny of our nation. In this endeavor, we must strive to be better humans. It will shape us and alter the way we conduct ourselves in this struggle. I asked a wise man, in which field could I make a great career? He said with a smile, be a good human being. There's a lot of opportunity in this area and very little competition. Happy Liberation Year 2022. Dr. Cho Ayaba, leader of the Ambazonia liberation struggle. Thank you.
So our country people, now the message that from the leader of our war of liberation, the president of the Ambazonian Governing Council, Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba, he talks say Cameroon it be defeated as a regime of occupation. A regime for occupation, they manifest themselves by the occupier being able to conduct government business as usual. And so far, Cameroon it be defeated in that case. They no fit do government as usual inside our territory anymore because of our activities for self-defense and for liberation. Cameroon it be left now for begin the organized fake rallies with no residents around and people the way they import them from abroad, like the one way Diongote it became show for inside Bamenda and for inside Boya. For Bamenda, Unasisi will be arrest some of those people the way they become for the Diongote meeting. They be come up for Babanki, where they be pay them by people where they for Yaoundé. They not be being a people for Bamenda. It shows say Cameroon it be defeated already and they rely now on those propaganda for project themselves like say they still be in control. Cameroon it don't try for attempt for re-establish political control by installing and reinstalling SDOs and DOs, and it has failed completely. Ambazonian, they are being called by the leader of our war of liberation to show commitment, not be just goodwill for this our liberation phase. And it talks for international law, the law of territoriality. It give obligation for people the way they control territory, for them not for just provide security, but for get obligation for provide certain services. So it will require we for demand tax, liberation tax for our people them. The Dr. Chuayaba he also explained, say all people for diaspora, the organization them, they need to pay liberation tax. And all man way there for diaspora, if he travel for go for ground zero, where they pay visa fee for La Republic, he also need for pay, understand say need for at least give some token, for pay also for liberation tax for the Ambazonian, their fighters and for ground. And it also talks say if you come out for diaspora, you want to go organize birthday, die, married. If you've been for diaspora where you go down, you must show proof so you support the liberation where they don't secure the ground for you before you go. Otherwise, you're going to breach this law. The leader for our war of liberation, he give one example. Say sometime it will be for a long time where Italy, it be the one claim say na then get control for northern Ethiopia, and it be the side international law, but Russia and France they be deny, say it no be so because say Italy it never show proof of effective government businesses within Ethiopia, northern Ethiopia. So Cameroon also then they for position today where they never show proof for business as usual within our territory. So Ambazonia it then defeat Cameroon as an occupying force. That was the message where the leader of our war of liberation began for we this year. He also outlined a vision for 2022, say by August for 2022, as we will implement a policy for self-governance by August, it will announce for the Ambazonian people if we don't attend the level where we get into that phase for total government for ground zero. So by August this year, we will know a big job for we for implement this policy. And if I may gonna know so that during the implementation phase, we will all the work together. Fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen, we will now enter for inside our primary presentation for today. Where now the big advice where Ambassador Tibor Nagy, for the former Undersecretary for State for African Affairs for America, Irangi, and for the Ambazonian people, courtesy to ABS television channel for Chris Anu, we will bring some excerpt them from that interview for presenter for Una because he get critical advice for our people. He get critical assessment from somebody who don't be at the helm, he don't be engaged at the highest level for the American government, for African states with Paul Biya, and so he know exactly which way they talk. Ambazonian they need to take this information where they come from Tibor Nagy as a privileged information and for take them very, very seriously. So make our technician make we dive straight for the speech, for the interview will be conducted by Chris Anu for a TV channel ABS. So let us go ahead. The technician will play the interview and then I will bring the analysis them for the part them where he don't play them. So technician, at least if you go ahead.
That is a very, very good question because at the end of the day, it should be the African Union that should be looking at these problems. I cannot betray some of my private conversations when I was Assistant Secretary of State, but I think I also said on my Twitter account that among my greatest regrets of not being able to help resolve an issue was the one in Cameroon, exactly because of that. And all I can say is I did my best to interest as much of the international community as.
So as soon as I hear Tibor Nagy in that excerpt, he talked about the whole issue for African Union because we then are for Africa and the African country them African Union if it's supposed to be the first institution where for the step in for try to resolve this war between Ambazonia and La Republique du Cameroon. But as soon as the year Tibor Nagy talk, say if you take a look at the membership them the president the way they for the African Union, most of the don't stay for chair for long time. Now dictator them way they no be friend for democratic principle them. So now why that way it be very unlikely say African Union it go champion anything we go protect human rights for inside Africa, let alone a case for Ambazonia. So it talks if there is any regret we get now say it no be try for solve this problem or it no be make success for solve the problem that way we be on the Secretary of State. So make we go further for talk about how the United States their official position when even meet up Cameroon their president as soon as know very well Tibor Nagy be travel for inside Cameroon. He meet up Paul Biya be give you some statue. So Chris Ano he ask he about where to be the official statement, the position where the American government he get them towards Cameroon, where Tibor Nagy he be representing for Paul Biya. Make una listen.
Possible to take a much more proactive approach in Cameroon. As to why the Africa Union itself doesn't get engaged in that, I think that question has to go to the officials of the Africa Union. Part of the answer is all you have to do is look at the membership of the Africa Union and see, who some of the longest serving heads of state are, how long they have been in their positions as heads of state. And of course, they have a certain amount of influence. So, what I'm saying is that like the United Nations, the Africa Union has to respond to all of its members. And if you look at some of those members, I would posit that some of those members are not leaders in democracy. Well, when I was in service, the U.S. government position was we very much supported the entirety of the Cameroonian state, and we urged the Cameroonian government to do everything possible to resolve the long-standing issue with the Anglophone areas. So basically, it was a message of please do everything possible to solve this problem before it does get to the point where there's going to be a secession between the two parts of Cameroon. So the United States, on the one hand...
Hold on from there. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, as we are here, the tape it play again, the part where we talk about the African Union, why African Union step in for resolve this crisis, because most of the African head of states are dictators who don't care about human right, and it be unlikely say they go to intervene for a situation where it concern human right also, as we go to point finger also for their side. And when I hear as Tibor Nagy talk when it comes for the American position, Tibor Nagy talk, I don't know, I hope say the technician, if you rewind them a little bit, just play them while they for screen, just rewind them a little bit, you play where they talk about the United States, their official position. It be very critical, make our people them understand this issue.
Well, when I was in service, the U.S. government position was we very much supported the entirety of the Cameroonian state, and we urged the Cameroonian government to do everything possible to resolve the long-standing issue with the Anglophone areas. So basically, it was a message of please do everything possible to solve this problem before it does get to the point where there's going to be a secession between the two parts of Cameroon.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, when I hear Tibor Nagy talk, the message for America, the diplomatic language, not the standard one. They support Cameroon, their territorial integrity, because Cameroon is a member for the United Nations and a partner for America. But that aside, the message they send for Paul Biya during the time with Tibor Nagy be, we for the most part not the same thing, it be very clear. One, then tell Paul Biya do everything to resolve the problem with the so-called Anglophone regions of Cameroon, when Ambazonia, na southern Cameroon, before it go reach for a position where secession will happen. So they tell Paul Biya a red line, there is a stage where if this thing cross this red line, Ambazonia will be free. The message is clear to Pobia, so make all man understand the America and their position. As a diplomatic language, the need for acknowledge the territorial integrity for which we them perceive them as Cameroon, as it be, but the detail Cameroon say there is a limit at the point lead to Ambazonia independent. So may we continue.
So the United States, on the one hand, had to work cooperatively with the Cameroonians on the northern problem, but at the same time, take them to task for committing human rights violations, excuse me, and violence against the Anglophone population. So that's kind of the background to the overall relationship. And then you had different parts, again, of the US government, foreign policy establishment, focusing on different areas. But overlaying all of this, of course, is the ongoing problem that as long as the Cameroonian government treats the Anglophone population as second-class citizens, the problem will never go away.
So
here's the deal.
So wait away, Tibor Nagy the talk. Now say the Cameroon, the United States of America, he wants Cameroon for fight against Boko Haram when are the problem where they for northern part of Cameroon. At the same time, it be very telling as Tibor Nagy he put them in very, very clear word without mixing a word. Say they call on Cameroon for stop violence in population. Treating the so-called Anglophones, where they talk about Ambazonia, as second-class citizen. So this is not a matter of debate about Cameroon using violence against our population. The American knows it, international community knows it, and they are telling Cameroon government that Cameroon has to stop violence against our population. They are not talking about fighting against Ambazonian fighters. Cameroon is committing violence against our people. The United States is aware. They have transmitted that to Cameroon. And they are asking Cameroon to stop the status quo. Because right now, we are second-class citizens. Otherwise, Tibor Nagy no go to talk say America is sending a message for Cameroon for stop treating Ambazonians as second-class citizens. That means we don't get the same status with Cameroonian citizens. Because no government where it get into a union with another government or another country go begin use terrorism tactics, collective punishment on their people. Begin assign their own citizens for govern over their territory. The way we La Republic it do. So that one it be very, very clear. And Tibor Nagy it go down. And one of the very important part for this interview with Chris Anu, na the statement we make concerning the Swiss talks, where the Chris Anu and Sako in particular, they ran champion them for over these years. So make our technician continue, make it play right through that statement, make a bring one away to we talk on for day.
I question the processes you mentioned, because are they processes to have a process, or are they processes to have a real outcome? To me, if something is just to have a process, then it's a total waste of time. That's one. Number two, and this I've never been able to get an answer
that
for.
One, now the answer where Tibor Nagy again for Chris Anu, where he asks about the Swiss negotiation. Tibor Nagy, in clear terms, and he talk on 3 different times for 3 different parts the way Chris Anu asks that question. He talks say the process to have a process is not to have an outcome. It is a complete waste of time. That is a direct response from Tibor Nagy to Chris Anu where he asks about the so-called Swiss mediation. Tibor Nagy is very clear. This is a process to have a process in place. That means say the international community, they don't just create this Swiss process so that it will be a thing where the figures point and talk say there is something going on. but you no get no intention, you no get no framework, you no be capable for produce any result, you no be designed for produce any result. So now the things that way Tibor Nagy he talk. A former top United States official who is one of the highest authority who can speak about these things. For the years when around the year me, we talk about them, the communicators of the governing council and many others, John Bakuru and many other people that they talk about them, even the IG of Siseko, they talk about the same thing. And I hope say now with Tibor Nagy, he don't tell the Ambazonian people. He don't give we three information about this, confirmed three information. One, not just a process. It be meant to be a process with the international community point at. Number two, go get no outcome. Number three, not a waste of time. So why will any group spend their time to push something that we know it is a waste of time? The framework announced by the HD and the Swiss government clearly states that this thing is designed for decentralization. It considers the people who are attending it as pressure groups in La Republic. The undercover intelligence work that was done to start this Swiss process, we already are aware how it was unfolded by Barry Colbert introducing Paul Biya to the Swiss ambassador. We are aware. We have people who have gone there and listened to them. John Bakuru have attended meetings there. Godidinka group have sent somebody to go and study. They have had meetings with us. We have studied what it is all about. We have studied the framework, and we don't tell the Ambazonian people this is just a waste of time. It is a process meant just to show that there is something going on that would lead to nowhere. Wonder, Cristiano hearing this thing from Tibor Nagy, will he still come to Ambazonian people and tell them to keep on following them, justifying the process? Absolutely, it will not make sense. And for anybody who don't listen for Tibor Nagy, calling this thing a waste of time, if that person still come for the talk about the Swiss deal as a distraction or for waste our time, we should know that these people means no good for us Ambazonian. So maybe we'll continue for about the unity amongst us now. We'll continue, continue.
The Anglophone population, do they have any kind of a hierarchy of leadership that could participate in some kind of a conference? Or is it a totally divided, grouping where you have different people speaking for themselves? In other words, it is much easier to have some kind of a genuine conference if you're sitting across from somebody who absolutely represents their side. Right now, I understand that the Cameroonian government can play all kinds of games.
One, now the biggest revolution and indictment for those who they call themselves Team Ambazonia, with Tibor Nagy Dangiam. This is a continuation of the answer for the Swiss question. I want to make the technician go back, play from time they talk about the Swiss mediation, me just flow up, come for this place right up to this statement. We're gonna hear a description for the participant them for this conference for Switzerland. Technician, please do it again.
Grouping where you have different people speaking for themselves. In other words, it is much easier to have some kind.
Where he starts to talk about the Swiss mediation, and we could just flow continue into this one. I'll hear it with Tibor Nagy talk.
And this I've never been able to get an answer for.
A little bit behind, like
Anglophone.
Perfect.
Process, or are they processes to have a real outcome? To me, if something is just to have a process, then it's a total waste of time. That's one. Number two, and this I've never been able to get an answer for. The Anglophone population, do they have any kind of a hierarchy of leadership that could participate in some kind of a conference? Or is it a totally divided, grouping where you have different people speaking for themselves? In other words, it is much easier to have some kind of a genuine conference if you're sitting across from somebody who absolutely represents their side. Right now, I understand that the Cameroonian government can play all kinds of games by, having these conferences, and then the people they're talking to do they really have real power? Do they have representation? Do they have a constituency? We can talk about surveys, but who knows the correctness of the data that's behind the surveys? In other words,
So hold
to
there.
have a real
So Tibor Nagy did the answer Chris Anu way they talk about the Switzerland. He gives two things. He say one, the Switzerland process or the Swiss mediation issue where they call and say Swiss cheese, most people they make a mockery of call and say Swiss cheese. Now just a process for B-Day as a process as a distraction. He call and say a waste of time. Number two, he talk say for that conference, the Cameroon government, he just one media conference day for people the way they talk with them, and those people that for those conference, those participants them, they not get no hierarchy. Now the first thing that we talk, they don't get no hierarchy. Now a bunch of people the way some of them they talk now just for themselves, on themselves. I think people like Bo Herbert, people like Ebenezer Akwanga, at least Ebenezer Akwanga have some small force on the ground, but it's obvious that Tibor Nagy, people are telling them exactly what it is. You don't have. He also questioned about power. You don't have real power. The people who are there, they don't have real power on the ground because they don't have command and control of the population or of the soldiers on the ground. He will go ahead, I think, in the second speech to explain that. So the Swiss process is a something that Tibor Nagy is saying. Is I quote Tibor Nagy, the government is using it, point it to the international community that you have a bunch of people there. They don't have real power. They don't have any rank. That means all of them. How can you be there? All of you say that you are equal. They don't have any rank, real rank. They lack real power, and that is the excuse. So Cameroon government is using the Swiss process as an excuse, according to Tibor Nagy. The participants in the conferences there have no real power, according to Tibor Nagy. Who can debate Tibor Nagy? He's saying this in front of Chris Anu. So, technician, continue. Let's listen to what Tibor Nagy is saying.
Summit to have a real process that will lead to an outcome, you need to have participants who represent somebody. So I don't personally, and even while I was in office, I never got a sense of the Anglophone side and who represents who. Now, as you well know, whenever there's an independence struggle, what usually happens, unfortunately, is that sooner or later the most violent group takes charge of the entire independence struggle. We've seen that over and over and over again.
Hold on there.
Is that what?
So, what's the way Tibor Nagy, he tell Ambazonians, he tell Chris Anu, say, since he left the office, none of those people, they never ever talk with you, basically. None of them never talk with you. And he tell them, say, during a liberation war like this, the most violent, he take over the struggle. According to the United States documents where they now released them outside, according to the World Bank, they consider the Ambazonian Governing Council, the ADF, as the radical side, as the hardliner. These are the people who have taken control of the struggle. It is now self-defense. The people that they call the radicals have taken all over the real power on the ground, who have a command and control structure on the ground. It is the ADF, it is the Ambazonian Governing Council. It's not Sako, it's not Cristiano, all those people who are there, they don't have any real power. Look about their structure. Cristiano have called for tsunami, called for hurricane, nothing have happened. His brother, Olivier Leke, Fimasha, have ordered Saga have told him shut off. He have ordered Grandpa Bali. Grandpa have tell him shut off. Today, Grandpa have made a video to tell them that he has separated himself. He's now under Babila Tita. So who do they control? So they have no real control on the ground. They have no structure on the ground. They are a group of people who are representing basically themselves. Those groups have no hierarchy, which is exactly what we have said. Groups should have hierarchy in negotiation. Negotiation is led by a leader. You must agree to have one group or one person that will lead. Everybody should align under them. So that is how it's supposed to be. He's pointing to the ADF. Tibor Nagy'S is clearly giving a pointer to ADF. With all respect to Chris Anu. He said that in all liberation movement, the radicals take over. The military wing takes over. And this is just a fact. And let's continue so that we can hear what he says about the diaspora issue that he quotes very important.
What is happening in this struggle? I don't know. Number two, is the Cameroonian diaspora, especially in the United States, are they united? Because as you well know, the Ethiopian diaspora is terribly divided. You know, you have two segments that are much as war at each other with words as the sides there. Are there genuine representatives of the Cameroonian diaspora that can engage with U.S. political forces, whether it's members of Congress or going to the State Department and talking? Because as you well know, in America, our politicians pay attention to the voters. Our politicians pay attention to political forces because the United States has so many interests around the world, and they take up so much of the attention of the United States that unless there is a political force behind any particular issue, it is not going to be looked at in a long-term serious way. So those are the questions, you know, that the American government would have to see. Number one, are the Anglophones united in the solution that they absolutely want? Number two, are there genuine representatives of the Anglophone population who really do speak for the entire population as opposed to a small group? And number three, has the Cameroonian government absolutely just played games and not been serious in any kind of process, so that the Anglophones have absolutely every right to take their grievances on the road to independence, so that it would eventually lead to an independent Ambazonia? They wanted to stay with Great Britain.
So wait to wait Tibor Nagy the talk, it be very, very important. It don't strike something will be at the heart of Ambazonian struggle, the issue of disunity. Tibor Nagy, it be very clear. He don't put three things with the American government wish for Siam before he lead for Ambazonian independence. First, he advised the diaspora, especially the American Ambazonians, when Atu ran the Singam and Atu it go on very well in the beginning of this liberation movement with Skakuf, where all the leadership they be gathered for one. They form one organization with one president for the leadership council, one secretary general to speak at one voice, so that when one group is talk for United Nations, they go talk for African Union, all then are one. At that time, the governing council will be the seek admission for Ambazonia into OMPO. I remember the Secretary of State of the governing council, Mr. Ayamba Eta, he even reached out for Seseko for make sure say make them register Ambazonia for OMPO under Skakuf. But then deny, then contact Elad go for the begin the one go do na blackmail. Now say it happened before the governing council even proceed for register OMPO, Ambazonia under OMPO as the custodian. The joint platform where it be the thing for political force for America, it be very important. That means say Ambazonian of America, me them protest, me them contact their parliamentarian, their senators and all those people for put them pressure for attend town hall for write for them, petition them about which way to go on. That one be important. But in them, three specific things. One, unity inconsistent. That means the one will get one voice. Where if he talk for African Union, talk for different places with the same message. And I think saying that for their way, Skakuf, if we play a very good role. With the absence of Skakuf, what do we have? Tibor Nagy, it talk about Team Ambazonia like a bunch of people who are representing themselves. 100 here, 100 there. And he said Cameroon have articulated that so well. And that is the reason why I think the governing council attended the conference of the CDN. Because that is the only thing that have brought people together. The leadership together and different segments that you can really say that it represents the genuine popular representation of our people. So Tibor Nagy is very clear. Number 2 point, genuine popular representation. So you want something that can represent everybody of the territory, not just a segment. And the CDN platform give that representation. And it also solves the questions of ranking. Because if you are going into a negotiation, who is going to lead? If there is a debate, whose voice, whose leader is going to take precedent? The CDN have recognized that the people want independence, the vast majority of the people want independence. So amongst the groups that are there, the voice of the independentists will proceed, will take precedent over any other voices in the territory. And there's an agreement, there will be an agreement there as they go forward to come with a formula of decision making if there is a deadlock. And the group that is more influential in the CDN without any dispute is Ambazonian Governing Council. You pull them out, the whole thing will crumble. And that is how it's supposed to be. You have to have unity and you have to have some ranking. Because with the failure of Skakuf, there is no way you can now choose a single person to represent the liberation movement. You know, I'm all for practicality. The more practical thing is that there will be a formula within the CDN that is going to be able to come with a formula for consensus where the leading movement is going to have a way to rally consensus around common things that will be acceptable by the other leaders, which will be in line with the common goal that have been identified. And then the second thing he talks about, the third thing, which the Americans are looking for, which is very important, he talks about the behavior of Cameroon. Tibor Nagy talks, say, if Cameroon, it prove, say, all this time that they give them, they never do any genuine process, it will lead for me them put this struggle in a course where it will eventually lead for our independence. When the thing will be done, they talking for a long time. Say, if the international community take up this our case, it could just be in a clear road to independence. Now, either way, it take a lot of time before it really reach for a tangible place. And we'll also need to facilitate that situation by being in a way where we will suit this criteria as America be a very important international player when it comes for establish the right of self-determination across the globe. So that's what we talk. And it will go further for really give a pointer to the Ambazonian Governing Council with the next speech, as it answer for Cristiano very well. So the hardliners usually take over, and that is just true with history. I think history is on our side here. So let us continue for you to hear what Tibor Nagy has to say about the structure.
The rebel side did have a command structure. They did have a political hierarchy. So for me, again, I'm speaking just for myself, but for the Anglophone Cameroonians to provide credible alternatives, they really should present a unified side, a unified structure, so that, you know, it's the same people that show up, whether it's in London, whether it's in Washington. And as we all know, we have to speak reality here in Paris. Because as long as the Cameroonian government can say, oh, it's a bunch of divided, you know, this person represents 100 people, this person represents 200 people, and oh, by the way, this person, all they do is kill school teachers, you know, who want to try and teach students. So, you know, I'm just being practical, because members of Congress are not going to have time to see 12 different spokespeople for the, you know, for the Anglophone Cameroonians. I'll
So,
tell you, during
so,
my time as assistant.
so Tibor Nagy, he addressed Chris Anu on this issue of the Swiss deal. He tell and say, for a face, there are people there who are there killing teachers, attacking students in that group. That is the case made by Cameroon government. That's what Tibor Nagy is saying. There are a bunch of people there. Why you have the rebels who have their command structure and political hierarchy, which is a very crucial criteria as articulated by Tibor Nagy. You have a bunch of people there who are killing teachers and killing students. You think that they don't know? And that is the case Cameroon is making. He's pointing at them. Look at who is there in the Swiss deal. People killing teachers, killing students. This one is representing himself. So who is there? Who are they going to talk to when the people who are not there have a command structure? They don't have a command structure. So Ambazonians, it is very clear and it's very obvious, and you can see Chris Ano very uncomfortable there. He tries everything possible, and Tibor Nagy, like a good politician, is very, very clear with him in the most respectful way. So let's continue this last part.
Secretary, I think in those years I heard from a handful of members of Congress. There was one member of Congress that I really applauded because he was very, very proactive in this regard. But it was not what I would say a kind of a hardcore effort or some kind of a political movement. And I have to add one thing. I would get. You well know because you.
So Tibor Nagy, he talked about the pressure being put on the American government by the congressional people. We have seen a list of over 40 American senators signing on to support what is happening there. We also they have signed America to list Ambazonian under certain protection from deportation, which is very critical, which is going to make this issue a domestic issue. It has been stalled because of lack of political pressure on those people. And he's basically telling you guys have to do more. The diaspora, especially Ambazonian Americans, have to do more to pressurize, and also leadership have to engage the Congress people, especially Karen Bass and the head of the Foreign Relationship Committee, and the other senator there who have also been very kind to us. He will receive our phone calls. His office and his staffers are always there to listen to us. We need to engage them even more and to push them to make it really significant for the constituent of America, for them to go through with this issue and bring it and bring it home. And so let's move on to this last part, this very important part. Go ahead, please.
See the pictures to these awful, god-awful photos of the human rights violations being committed by the security forces. And then, of course, the Cameroonian ambassador shows up with, that shows pictures of teachers who've had their hands cut off and gendarmes, who have been killed. So the violations are awful. No.
So Tibor Nagy, in talk, this is very important, especially for Eric Tato and his followers. Tibor Nagy talks, say, when they don't get pictures and videos of the horrible images where Cameroon government do, where they kill our people, them kill our picking them, they do want carry and for push and for inside Security Council. The Cameroon ambassador, it come for day we own picture them for show that Gary process where they don't cockot people their hand. Basically, it talks say Cameroon, it neutralize any effect where Ambazonia for free get for the international community with the pictures of these people they don't cut their hand. Where Eric Tato, it be order them, Eric Tato, it be instigate them, it be promote them under the IG, using those his restoration force, General Lucifer, for them to carry out all these atrocities them against our people. We will be right and we will be just for criticize Eric Tato and for talk say me is stop him, make it denounce him if in the hell of la Republic. And today, Tibor Nagy, of all people, he authoritatively tell the Ambazonian people and say those actions against our own civilian neutralize the help we will forget them when Cameroon government be commit those atrocity. So there is a link of Cameroon using Ambazonians to commit atrocity in order to use those atrocities to shield itself. So Sako should answer, and Eric Tato should answer. How did General Lucifer get into action and he answers to nobody but Sako? How did he have connection if Eric Tato had connection with him to be carrying out his instruction of Gary process? Eric Tato, if you are a clean man, I'm speaking today to you like a fellow Ambazonian. Repent, withdraw that your Gary process. You know that it was helping La Republic. You don't make the money with fulfill make them, whether not genuinely or not. But if you are honest Ambazonian, Tibor Nagy, you don't testify, say what you did do you don't actually spoil Ambazonia a chance to get progress. Repent from it. Deny say make no Ambazonian fighter in no court Ambazonia in hand. Like how we would talk for the governing council. Make nobody no attack another person. Sako, you don't hear. If truly you defied na for Ambazonia, you are not helping La Republic. Or the semi-general Lucifer is stopped for kill people them because of Ghost Town, for shoot people their food because it help for spoil this struggle. Mr. Yerima of Siseko, call 10 Kobo. Tell 10 Kobo, say make it stop for kill or attack students them. Because even though we hide them, American they know. Now picture this only for 10 Kobo. Again, innocent civilians. Now it is my show for Namona Siam. Now it is a family member that they send for we. Do are not a civilian where they send them for say 10 Kobo. He kill say do are na weti. So it been under Ambazonian Restoration Forces. Milton Taka talk say Ambazonian Restoration Forces is under them. Call 10 Kobo and tell him that what he's doing is wrong. He's not helping us. When he does something that is good, we will support him. But these things, as Tibor Nagy is saying, helps to neutralize anything they want to do against Cameroon because of the atrocity Pobia is committing in our territories. So Milton Taka, Yerima, Seseko, Sako, Chris Anu, all the shareholders of Ambazonian Restoration Forces, and remove you take responsibility and call these people to order if you are not helping La Republique. So Meg will continue, make it talk about his own first-hand experience for what the Cameroon government need to do and for we with discrimination and treating us as second-class citizens. Let us go ahead.
No matter who commits them against who. But for the international community is seized with so many crises in so many places that there's only 24 hours in the day to focus on one crisis or another. These awful crises which go on and on forever, and people are losing their lives, and women are being raped, and there's horrible abuse. They just tend to be under the radar of the international community as opposed to an Afghanistan. So that's why I'm saying that to give these types of crises the focus that they deserve, there needs to be political mobilization, and people need to point to it themselves in engaging with their political leadership. You mentioned a minute ago that every time in my recordings, I sound frustrated in that I don't think that the Cameroonian government is taking it seriously. And of course, I'm frustrated, and I was always frustrated. I was frustrated the first day I came on the job because, of course, they weren't taking it seriously. They were going through a process. They were going through delaying tactics. They were just hoping that this situation goes away. And since I'm a historian, my history tells me that the situation is not going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. That's why when I alluded to Boko Haram, when Boko Haram first started, they started with words, and then they went to machetes, and then they went to guns, and then they went to bombs, and then they went to armored personnel carriers. And these types of conflicts just have a way to grow and grow and grow. And then when the government finally pays attention, it is way out of control. I mean, you and I both know that early when this crisis started, The Cameroon government, by exercising genuine goodwill, could have ended it very, very quickly. They did not. And, you know, whatever data
So
you cite for surveys,
Tibor
I'm sure
Nagy,
that today,
hold on for day. It clearly talks this war is the making of lack of genuineness from Mr. Pobia. This war is not Ambazonians are power mongers. It's not because of the ADF. It's not because of the Amber Boy. It's not because of Ayabacho. It's not because of anybody. It's not because of the Capo Daniels, the General Efang, the General Ivor, the Lucas Asu. It's nothing to do with us. It is all to do with Mr. Pobia, who failed to rise up to the challenge, to show genuineness in resolving this crisis. It's because of Pobia's lack of leadership that we are where we are today. But we are where we are today, nevertheless. So let's go ahead.
there are many more people who favor an independent Ambazonia than there were when the polls were taken. So to me, it is a huge tragedy. It's an unnecessary tragedy, and the Cameroonian government, by exercising wisdom, could have ended it. But I go back to the fundamental point I made, that as long as the Cameroonian government looks at its Anglophone population as second-class citizens, then the conflict is going to go on. Yeah, here is my take. I traveled all over Cameroon. Of course, I was very good friends with John Fruindi, and I remember driving to Bamenda once to investigate the killing of some demonstrators. And I get to Bamenda and I meet with the governor, who's a francophone and doesn't speak English. I meet with the commander of the military region, who's a francophone and doesn't speak any English. And I said to myself, you know, as long as the government assigns people to the Anglophone regions who cannot even honestly communicate with the people that they're supposed to be engaging with, it is a losing policy. You know, I flipped this around. I think you've heard me mention this before, because the Cameroonian situation is very similar to the Canadian situation, except in Canada, 80% of the population is Anglophone, 20% Francophone. In Cameroon, it's 80% Francophone, 20% Anglophone. And in Canada, they have gone out of their way to make sure that the 20% Francophones feel like they are a part of Canada. As a matter of fact, when any Canadian official makes a speech, the one page is in French and the next page is in English, and it goes on like that. It is inconceivable for a Canadian politician to not be fluent in both English and French. And
So
until the Cameroonian government gets this through their...
So let's see what Tibor Nagy is saying. The unfairness of this system that we live in. The abuse of using a foreign language to address us every time. Urando's weakness somewhere at office, he come for inside Victoria. He can't speak for our Pekin them in French. He go for school. I mean for Boya. Speak for our people in French. It's deliberate. Tibor Nagy's weakness. How many weaknesses can we explain what we have been going through? The Francophonization of our territory, our institutions, by an alien government with an alien language that we do not understand. It is disrespectful, it's deliberate, and they continue to do it every single day. Because they want to show us that we are indeed a colonized people. We cannot take it. We will not take it. Not because Tibor Nagy says it. Because we are human. We are humans. So let's go ahead to listen to the last part of it.
The Anglophone population is always going to be made feel like second-class citizens. Secretary of State to see what the possibilities are. But of course, U.S. policy changes as we discussed with Somaliland, because, you know, who knows where that will go.
to put pressure, require pressure on Cameroon to get to the
So
table. Don't you
there's a
think
big
that
pointer there.
countries like the United States...
There is a big pointer there. I want us to, we will start back where Chris Ano is talking so that you guys should see how strange this Chris Ano is. But first, there is a pointer there where pointing to what I think is really us how a great leader Dr. Chua Yaba is. Because if you look at his end of year speech, the vision for 2022, he's talking about self-governance, already the style of Somaliland. I don't know if this guy was in our cabinet meeting, but it is exactly what we are trying to do to implement in this 2022 a Somaliland type of government in a transitional phase in Ambazonia. And Tibor Nagy is pointing to that direction. And it's really showing our people that we have an institution, the Ambazonia Governing Council, that has the necessary vision, it has the technical know-how, it has the will, the backbone to prosecute this liberation movement to its logical end. But watch this segment with Chris Anu, and let's comment later.
Go.
To put pressure, require pressure on Cameroon to get to the table. Don't you think that countries like the United States, the UK, Canada could do more to assist the Swiss get Cameroon to the negotiation table?
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very...
Before we come for it, Tibor Nagy will respond for Chris Anu. Don't you think it is really strange that somebody who is supposed to be fighting for independence is fighting for a Swiss process, is fighting to get validation about Swiss mediation? Is it not strange to anybody who will watch Chris Anu? This is the third time he takes his time to force it on Tibor Nagy. But we know Americans are not easy nuts. Tibor Nagy will not say something to please anybody. So this is the third time. I have actually edited it. This is the third time where Chris Anu is forcing the issue on Tibor Nagy's neck to give validation for the Swiss mediation. Why will a liberation movement be fighting for a process that have been called a waste of time, that there is no evidence that it can help us? Tibor Nagy himself is saying that Cameroon government is using this process to delay and buy time. Why will Chris Anu and Sako be so obsessed about this mediation, this waste of time, when there are alternatives? They were involved in the European Institute of Peace. So let's listen to what Tibor Nagy will respond to him again, the third time.
Could do more to assist the Swiss get Cameroon to the negotiation table.
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very issue. The problem was, again, as long as there was a quote-unquote process going on, it's fairly easy for the international community to point to that and say, well, there's a process in place, so let's just see where that process, ends up. So as I mentioned before, unfortunately, it seems to me to be a process, to just have a process, and there's not going to be any sharp outcome.
So when I hear Tibor Nagy, I answer Chris Anu for the third time. He tells Chris Anu, this is a smoke screen by Paul Biya. He talked for Chris Anu on air, say ye Tibor Nagy have had private conversations. This is the former Undersecretary of State in charge of this affair for America. He's telling you, Chris Anu, he's telling you and me, Ambazonia, that he has private conversations. So he's not saying it as a suggestion. He's informing us that he knows, he has discussed with the people involved, and this is his conclusion. It is a process for process sake. It is a smoke screen for Paul Biya to give the international community that are supporting him to point at it in order to ignore us. So, knowing what we know, Anybody pushing for this waste of time, this smoke screen, is working for Paul Biya. He's helping Paul Biya to achieve the purpose for which this process was meant for. It is as simple as that. You cannot be fighting for something when the toppest United States former Undersecretary of State have informed you that he have had private conversation with the people who are involved. And it is being used as a smoke screen to give time to Mr. Paul Biya. So nobody should debate this issue again. He said that there is no outcome envisaged. That means the outcome is not even negative or positive. There is no outcome envisaged in this process. He says it is just a process. Ask yourself, why will Sako, even when the people who are there with him, like Bohebet, comes out and say Paul Biya is not committed, why will Sako be insisting that Paul Biya have committed? Why will he be speaking on behalf of Paul Biya? Why will he be defending Cameroon? Why will Chris Anu be struggling to use Tibor Nagy, even when he is resisting, to give validation for something that is helping Cameroon? It is not helping Ambazonia. Why? I will leave that question to you. Let us move ahead with a conclusion.
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very issue. The problem was, again, as long as there was a quote unquote process going on, it's fairly easy for the international community to point to that and say, well, there's a process in place, so let's just see where that process, ends up. So as I mentioned before, unfortunately, it seems to me to be a process, to just have a process, and there's not going to be any sharp outcome.
So when I hear Tibor Nagy again, as the repeat him, he talks with it. He wish if we go into a private conversation. Now, for tell when I say there are private conversations that have certainty, which if we share on a bit more the same detail on the same thing. Say this is just a process. It has no outcome envisaged in it. It is just a process for process sake. It is a black screen. It's a smoke screen for Paul Biya to continue to kill people. Nobody should buy time for Paul Biya. So, ladies and gentlemen, concerning the issue for unity, for come together with one voice, as Tibor Nagy dan talk, there needs to be a ranking, there needs to be a formula, and the Ambazonian Governing Council have worked hard. We have extended to the IG, irrespective of the fact that it is a hijacked platform. We have accepted and recognized them as a group, despite the injustice that was done to Skakuf, but they have refused every option to unite. Because how do you unite with somebody who calls himself a government and claim to have exclusive power of governance? How do you do that? Even when they don't have legitimacy, you hear the audio of Wanja trying to lie and create legitimacy where it is lacking. That their constitution was created by Molanjo Lutumbe, Gojidinka, and all those people. We know that that's lies. So how can we unite with these people? We cannot. The ball is in their court. If Seseko truly loves us, if he loves the people, if Milton Taka loves the people, have him on record saying that they exist because there are some people who can donate money to them. That is the only reason. They are not there to do anything. It's a paper document, a paper organization. Milton Taka spent his time convincing Okoro and the rest not to give honor to ADF. Somehow they think that is going to help the struggle. Look at Seseko Ebini, a very good man, spending time collecting money, sending to, you want to send it to the victims in Bamenda, but the people who are in control of the victims of Bamenda, you don't want to give them that money. Imagine if everybody was acting like that. We will have no command and control, we will have no structure. The influences that we can have to put these soldiers on the right path, we will lose those opportunities. Do you know how many soldiers Okoro have lost? How can you help him? Obini, you are not competent to do that. Empower those who are competent to do their job for an effective liberation. My country people, we don't try all things for unite with Seseko them, it no work. Because Seseko, Sako, they are focused on power so much that for us to keep on trying to do something with them that they don't want to do, will only give them more control over us for the negative thing. These are people who don't want any other person to rise. They are there for themselves. People will be empowering us for effective liberation. They have tried everything, it didn't work. And the same thing goes to Mark Parata and all those people. I don't want to get there. But we will have to. The Ambazonian Governing Council will have to forge its way by itself. If anybody wants to align, they will do so by their will. It will not be us pursuing them. It will not be us demanding them. If they think that we are the ones who love Ambazonia so much that they will sit there and sabotage unless we join them. Like Miss Ntakan tell me, say, they feel move their hand for this struggle, level for we. Me them do am. We no go beg them, say me they no do am. We not go ahead. But one thing you know, for us, we will maintain our dignity, our objectivity, our pragmatism. Above all, we will maintain our honor and our national pride. And we will fight like this war depends on us alone. But we will not give you our credit. You will not rise on our back and our effort to get into power in Ambazonia. That one I assure you. If you want to pass close to power, align yourself. Change your mind. It is on you, not on us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
The process is alive because La Republic has committed to be on the table. That's it. If the day La Republic will cease to commit to be on the table, there's
committed.
Well, first, let me say the last part. La République du Cameroon is not committed to the process. They are not.
Swiss ceases to be a mediator. Because a mediator is one who is bringing two willing parties together to dialogue and negotiate. If one party ceases to be willing, if one party withdraws its commitment, from that day you cease to be a mediator. So to say that Swiss mediator does not exist is nonsense. They are mediators, they are not negotiators.
I know one of the questions that has been asked.
Good morning, fellow televiewers on the ACN television network. Welcome to another episode of the No Conny Talk Show. In the making, history made already. This is a show where we talk the people's language for Biafra and the people's language for Ambazonia, the Pidgin English. And I'm me, Capo Daniel, una host. So I'll play this music and welcome everybody. And we'll go straight into this topic today, which is very, very important and very, very critical.
Stay tuned on ACN TV. We will be right back.